Hey everyone, Mike Miller with the Herald Times coming to you with IU basketball columnist Jeremy Price. We're here at Assembly Hall after Indiana's 75-68 loss to Wisconsin. Third straight loss for Indiana, which, this season is not going as planned. A pair of top three wins in the month of November have been followed by a late December, now into January skid. Indiana's first three-game losing streak since the end of the 2014-15 season. It's also the first time they've started 0-2 in Big Ten play since the start of the very forgettable 2013-14 season.
Yeah, that didn't go well.
No, that wasn't on the beat then, but just watching from afar, I was glad I wasn't on the beat for that. I did not want to watch that season. This season, potential's still there, but they got to find out some stuff fast, real fast too, because here we are. They've lost 2 games at Assembly Hall. It's a backloaded Big Ten schedule. You got Illinois coming in here on Saturday night. An opportunity to rebound, but man, this was you've already lost 2 games, and you come out and you spot Wisconsin a 13-0 run. Eventually, I think reach 16-2 to start this game, which that's not good. I mean, a team that already has its back up against the wall, a team that should be having a little bit more urgency, comes out playing like that, and it was bad. It was flat. It was just very disconnected, very uninspired play in those first 4 or so minutes of the game. Hard to explain, hard to really understand how that happens.
Yeah, it is. And I mean, Juwan Morgan just said we weren't ready, but that doesn't really explain anything. It's like, how are you not ready?
Yeah.
I mean, and the thing is that this just happened last week against Nebraska, basically the same thing. They came out not ready. They've just not gotten off to good starts in any of this 3-game losing streak, basically, and to do so here at home is just really inexplicable, and especially on a night like this where you knew that this team needed a good performance, needed a win if possible against Wisconsin. To come out and dig yourself a hole like that from the get-go is just hard to explain. I'm not sure, as hard as that is to explain, I was sort of equally impressed the fact that they actually dug out of that hole, because the way this team had been going, I wasn't really sure if they were capable of digging out of a hole like that. And the way that Wisconsin has played against IU, I wasn't sure if IU was capable of digging out of a hole like that. But they found a way to do it, and then dug themselves another hole at the end of the game.
Yeah, there was a 10-2 run for Wisconsin, I think, right leading into the final media timeout.
Yes.
In between the final and the under 8 and the final media timeout. It was a 10-2 Wisconsin run, and that basically just took Indiana out of the game. Until that point in the second half, we saw some great play by DeRon Davis, who really asserted himself well, was strong, physical, and obviously he's got good feet, which we've seen throughout the first couple months, and he was really able to take it, or at least draw some fouls, draw some contact, and use some post moves against Ethan Happ, because as we saw with Thomas Bryant, Thomas just really, really struggled tonight. And he struggled against Ethan Happ last year,
yes,
too.
He did.
And that continued tonight as well.
Yeah, Ethan Happ pretty much takes Thomas Bryant's lunch and feeds it to him pretty much, both last year and this year. And, I think this was fast becoming clear, if it wasn't clear to you already at this point, that DeRon Davis is the best low-post player on this team. Thomas Bryant is a big man, but he's not a low-post player. He just isn't physical enough. He isn't strong enough. He doesn't play big enough. What Indiana found some success tonight with was having Bryant and Davis on the floor together. Actually got some high-low going where Bryant was actually feeding Davis on the inside. Bryant playing on the perimeter. He didn't give IU a whole lot from there, other than had one really good take against Happ when Happ was in foul trouble there in the second half, that he drove to the basket from the three-point line, which is something that I think he needs to do more of. But, DeRon Davis is really coming on and is sort of the one bright spot in the struggles of the last week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever it is now. I guess really if you want to date back to Butler for that matter.
Yeah.
But DeRon Davis is really coming on, a really strong physical presence. Maybe you could compare him a little bit to Noah Vonleh. I mean, obviously Noah Vonleh came in, was a decent low post, very good rebounder. He's maybe not there as a rebounder yet, but I think he's a more physical player than Vonleh, who was more inclined to drift to the perimeter and wanted to shoot that three-point shot. Maybe in some ways sort of the most physical low post kind of presence since DJ White, really, for Indiana. And I mean, the kid's only a freshman, so I mean, there's a lot to come with DeRon Davis, but you have to like where things are headed if you're looking for a bright spot.
Yeah, and he's 19 too, so he's already kind of got that body and that build, and you would just almost think there that maybe it might come a little bit quicker than with most freshmen. We'll see how that develops. But yeah, I mean, when you talk about bright spots, it's really it right now. You look around at some of the other individual performances. We talked about Bryant. Another tough shooting night for Rob Johnson. Just didn't have the kind of success coming off of 1 for 13 against Louisville. Finished today 4 for 9. He had a late three-pointer. It didn't matter in the final seconds. But other than that, it didn't really. Something looks off right now.
Yeah, I think Robert Johnson is one of those guys where coming into this year, he knew he needed to take a step up and maybe be more of a leader for this team. He knew maybe he needed to score a little bit more for this team. And early on in the season, things went pretty well in that department. And part of that was, James Blackman Jr. got off to such a good start this season. I think it made it easier for those two guys to play off of each other. Now that this team sort of hit a little bit of a road bump, I think Johnson's, obviously his shot's struggling a little bit. Yeah. Maybe he's trying to struggle a little bit with where he's supposed to be, what he's supposed to be doing as a leader for this team. How does he get these guys to go with him? What does he need to do on the floor? Does he need to shoot more? Does he need to pass more? Does he need to handle the ball more? Just what does he need to do? And sort of his situation is sort of emblematic of where this team is at right now. You know that he's a good player. You know what he can do, but things are just off right now, just sort of out of kilter, really, for this entire team. And so Rob Johnson's sort of the poster boy for that right now.
Talk about being off. We'll get to, I guess, the central theme of your column tonight. Stretch there late, or I guess about midway through the second half. Who came out? Bryant and...
that was when Davis came out, Bryant came in.
And then
Morgan went out.
Right. McRoberts was out, or he was on the floor.
McRoberts was already on the floor. McSwain came in, and Blackman came in for Johnson, I think it was. So that turned into what I have dubbed the McLineup, with the McDonald's All-Americans of Blackman and Bryant with McRoberts and McSwain. Sorry, OG, you didn't fit in there anywhere. But anyway, besides that, that was the lineup that ultimately coughed up that 10-2 run that you referenced earlier. And it was a 54-all game at the time that lineup came on the floor. By the time Tom Crean called timeout with 4:30 left, it was 63-56, I believe it was. And for all intents and purposes, it wasn't over, but it was over. I mean, Indiana had basically dug itself a hole one too many times that it wasn't going to get out of. And, what I wrote about tonight was basically this was a situation that could have been avoided because Indiana put players, particularly McRoberts and McSwain, and maybe to a lesser extent Thomas Bryant with the way Ethan Happ was eating him up. But, DeRon Davis had to have a rest in there. I get that, and obviously he needed to go out at least for a couple of minutes. But that lineup went too long, was taking too much risk to have that lineup out at that stage in the game, and really just sort of handicapped this team at a point where it couldn't afford to be handicapped. If it was going to do that, it needed to do it for a minute and a half, not 4 minutes as it turned out.
Yeah. So here we are, again, 0-2 in the Big Ten. Illinois coming up, and then you have a trip to Maryland. Got to figure it out soon. Jeremy, you are, what was that? Didn't you have a name for yourself in one of the Hall Pass episodes? Weren't you like a genie or
Price the Magnificent?
Price the Magnificent. All right, Mr. Magnificent. What do we do here? What is the answer for this Indiana team? What's the fix? Well, I don't think there is just one. But
no, there's not just one with this team. What the fix is beating Illinois on Saturday. We didn't want to label tonight a must-win because Wisconsin was a game you circled as a toss-up at best, I think, on the schedule anyway. So it's not a shock that Wisconsin come in here and won this game. What's disappointing is the way that Indiana lost it with this bad start and the bad finish. Illinois comes in, a team that's, again, slated to finish in the bottom half of the Big Ten. I don't really see any way that Illinois doesn't finish in the bottom half of the Big Ten. Really not unlike Nebraska, which is nice of a start as it's gotten off to. I'm not sure that team finishes in the top 5 or 6 in the Big Ten either. Maybe I'm wrong, but this is a team that Indiana should beat, especially on its home floor. And now you're talking an Indiana team that's lost 3 in a row. They know things aren't going well. They know they've got to win a game. So this is the game to win. If somehow Illinois comes into Assembly Hall and wins on Saturday,
oh God,
all bets are off. I mean, anything literally could happen at that point. I don't think it will. I think Indiana will be able to right itself on Saturday against Illinois, which it needs to, because that road trip to Maryland's Yeah, they qualify as another one of these Jekyll and Hyde Big Ten teams.
Exactly.
They can be really good and they can be really not so good. So
Exactly.
who knows what's going to happen there.
I don't want to live in a Bloomington where Indiana loses at home to Illinois and has 3 straight home losses. I don't want to live in that Bloomington. This is such a nice, friendly place, but this would not be there would be torches and pitchforks running up 17th Street if that happened. So
there may be later tonight. Who knows?
let's get out of here.
Yeah.
On that note, thanks for watching, guys. We'll catch you soon.